A new article was just published recently by Kirk McCand over at VG247 detailing some spicy new information about the upcoming Deathloop. In the article, the creative director at Arcane's Lyon branch, Dinga Bakaba, was interviewed and provided some key insight into aspects of the game that up to now have not been elaborated on. Well, now they have, and we're going to go over some of the most important details that stood out to me. So without further ado, let's get into it. The article begins by signaling that Deathloop will not contain any sort of chaos or morality system like the Dishonored series has prominently featured. Bakaba makes a point of reinforcing this notion by saying, you can really go crazy, go loud, go silent, explore as much as you want or be as fast as you want, but without missing out on the content. So there is something that furthers the Dishonored paradigm to an extent in terms of gameplay. The article explains that the island is a never-ending party, and Dinga continues by giving us a rundown of Black Reef Island, its history, the current society and culture, and the air of mystery surrounding the island's connection to the time loop. It is supposed to be a gigantic party if it was not for one person who is the ultimate party crasher for eternity, Colt. It's a strange place in the world. It's a place that was an army base at one point, where strange experiments have happened. There is something special on this island, but the people who are now living there, the people who are of the Aeon program, have invested in the island in order to be a party that never ends, a party at the end of time, forever. Now this part of the article is where we start to learn more about the structure of the game. In this case, it will be following the model set by the Dishonored series, as Deathloop will feature segmented levels as opposed to a large open space, much like the Talos 1 space station in Prey. I had assumed for a while that the game would feature the largest open environment that Arcane has ever crafted, and I might still be right, but it will be much closer in scale, I imagine, to some of the larger levels in Dishonored 2, for example, perhaps even bigger. Dinga elaborates on this. You choose which district you want to go to and what you want to do there. You can go and do some assassinations, or you can just go and explore a district where there are no targets. So it's a little bit like a Dishonored game, but where you would make your schedule for the day, in a way like a Persona game, where you would organize your day and say, okay, today I want to do this, and then that, and then this. But the structure is closer to Dishonored, with a bit more choice and agency about how you go about things. After this, the article goes into detail about the time loop itself, and also the hub area and roguelike elements that will be heavily featured in Deathloop. There's also that clock counting down to midnight, and each objective you take on will reduce the time you have left for the remaining targets when you return to your hub. If you run the clock down before killing them all, you're back at the start of the loop, each time with newfound knowledge for levels, NPC routines, routes, and tactics. There's a glimmer of DNA from Prey Mooncrash, not quite a roguelike, but designed to be mastered through repetition and experimentation. The acquisition of knowledge and understanding what's happening on Black Reef, and basically, as the trailer says, piecing together the puzzle, that's the core of the game, Bakaba says. Understanding what is happening, who are those people, what are the rules of this world, what are the rules of the island, and then how can I actually do this thing? Because when you say 8 targets one day, that sounds easy. Actually, it's not as easy as it looks. So trying to unpack all those things, learning a little bit more about the targets, what they do, who they are, what makes them tick, what are their weaknesses, etc., and trying to line them up perfectly is the core of the game. One of the ways we like to call this is the murder puzzle. It's like an inverted Cluedo. You have to make a perfect run, and you will need lots of knowledge and understanding. So there's quite a bit to unpack here. First, the game will feature a hub area for Colt to travel back to between missions, perhaps that sewer-looking area we saw briefly in the recent gameplay trailer. If it's anything like the Dishonored games, there will be even more activities and lore to find in the hub area, much like the Hound Pits pub and the Dreadful Whale. Second, Deathloop will in fact feature a persistent time limit across the game, and as you cross the 8 targets off your list gradually, that time limit will tick down, bringing you even closer to midnight, where the loop will reset and all your hard work will be for nothing. Just kidding, that's the point. You're bound to fail initially, but you'll begin the next loop with more knowledge pertaining to the environment itself, the enemy behavior, and different tactics to exploit. This pretty much cements my thought that Prey Mooncrash was a taste test, so to speak, for what was to eventually come with Deathloop, and its roguelike persistent gameplay. We'll move past this portion of the the article, where they elaborate on Juliana's place in the game and the ability for her to be controlled by either AI or another human player, which was already confirmed in the Bethesda.net article that accompanied the gameplay trailer. However, interestingly, the article gives us a tease as to Juliana's capabilities and the threat she poses to Colt. One of Juliana's powers is called Masquerade, and it allows her to assume the form of anyone on the island, including Colt himself. You might be sneaking up on what you think is an NPC, a Juliana player in disguise, only for them to spin around at the last minute to catch you unaware. As well as ambushes, Arcane has seen the Masquerade ability deployed to confuse a player taking on the form of Colt, and to make it harder for the protagonist to prioritize targets when Juliana is backed up by other NPCs who are gunning for Colt. Another new gameplay feature that this article confirms is the idea of equipping a loadout before each mission. This is a more action-focused game than Dishonored, so the power wheel has been thrown out for a more direct approach. Here, you load up on abilities and guns before a mission, so now you have buttons dedicated to powers, lending the action more immediacy. Dinga continues by giving us a name for the power we see Colt use throughout the gameplay trailer. That's a power we call Kinesis. So we wanted to take another approach compared to something like Dishonored, where you unlock a ton of abilities and you have all of them accessible at any time. In DEATHLOOP, you can take a number of weapons with you and a number of abilities, and you can select them as you unlock them. So there is a choice to be made before each mission in a way. The last important piece of information mentioned in this article is the confirmation that there is no option for a non-lethal approach in DEATHLOOP, which makes sense considering the whole point is to kill the 8 targets and not just eliminate the 8 targets. So I'm personally not going to miss that feature in a game that focuses much more heavily on action, even though stealth will still very much factor into it, as Bakaba explains. This is something we are taking from Dishonored. Encounters are very lethal, up to the point where you start to improve your character. I like to say that you can be something like a superpowered John Wick, but being sneaky can also be enhanced by abilities. There are some abilities that are dedicated to that, to sneaking around, to making the best of stealth. So you can play using stealth, although playing non-lethally is not something Colt is into for a number of reasons. But the most important reason is, the only way he's getting out of the island is by killing 8 targets before the end of the day. So because people don't really die per se, because of the time loop, he just goes for the fastest option, which is either sneaking past them or eliminating them through stealth or action. And with that, we now have a clearer idea of what DEATHLOOP will offer to players in terms of its gameplay and mission structure. Let me know what you think about this new information in the comments down below, and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Consider subscribing for more content like this, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. And remember that the outsider walks among us. Thanks for watching.